past their prime, don't get it. It's just a waste of time. There's so many great athletes. I'd rather talk about the great ascending athletes, all the young quarterbacks, the Josh Allens and the Lamars and the Justin Herberts and the Joe Burrows. That's so much more fun to me than beating up on declining athletes who don't get it. I will say this, though. They're going to have to trade Westbrook. Everybody knows it. There's a couple of stories out today on possible trade destinations. One, the Pacers. Pacers are in a total rebuild, right? So they're kind of tanking in a total rebuild. They have two players, Buddy Hield and Malcolm Brogdon, both solid role players. When you're poorly run and make big mistakes, this is what you're left with as the Lakers. Bad options. Like, this is where the NBA is very inferior to the NFL. The NFL, you can just cut and trade guys. You don't have to guarantee anything. The Vikings, Kirk Cousins got an NBA deal, fully guaranteed. And the Vikings have been trapped for 3 or 4 years since, and that's why they keep restructuring it. They can't get out of it. You don't want that. It's bad for the fans. I never understand when fans root for the players to get guaranteed money. As a fan, root for teams to be able to manipulate, be twitchy, move. You don't want to be trapped. You don't want to be in quicksand. In the NBA, you're always in quicksand. And, of course, general managers make mistakes. Jerry West made mistakes. The best GMs have made mistakes. It's hard. You're judging 18-year-old, 19-year-old kids out of college. You're going to make some mistakes. Even in college football, where a kid's 23 years old and you have 4 years of tape, 30% of the players bust. It's hard. It's imperfect. So I don't think leagues should be in the business of punishing executives who make the occasional random mistake. Now, the Lakers make a lot of them in the last decade, but here's where we're at. So the question really becomes, if you're the Lakers, do you want one outrageously priced, declining star that works with nobody for one more year? Or two overpriced role players for several years who may or may not work? That's what you're left with. A toxic one-year relationship, declining player, doesn't fit, just keep him for a year and get out of it. Or go get Buddy Hield, who you wanted anyway in a trade, and Malcolm Brogdon. He's got a 3-year deal, and you're kind of in this thing for several years. You don't know if they'll be great. I would make the deal. Why? Because LeBron makes everybody in the world better except Westbrook. Secondly, Westbrook now has become toxic. I think nothing ruins a workplace like toxicity. You can have lazy coworkers. They don't ruin a workplace. You can have average coworkers. You can have declining coworkers. Toxic coworkers ruin the room. I'd move him. But these are the options you're left with. Longer contracts, marginal players, hope they're better, but they're not stars, and they're expensive. Or just one more year. Now, this is where the city of Los Angeles and the brand of the Lakers works against them. 90% of pro sports teams, when you're awful, nobody cares. The Sacramento Kings haven't made the playoffs for 16 straight years. I don't mention them. Nobody cares. The Cincinnati Reds and the Mariners won't be good again this year. Nobody cares. But when you're in Los Angeles, where there's a lot of options, the World Series champion Dodgers, the Super Bowl champion Rams, these teams in the last couple of years, there's just so many great teams, the beach, the mountain, the economy's rolling. People will just stop going to games very quickly. Very quickly. The second thing is when the Yankees are bad, or Duke basketball, or Notre Dame football, or Ohio State football, or Kansas basketball, or the Lakers, they get pummeled by the national media because they matter more. There's about 12 of those in the country. They matter more. And so are the Lakers willing to just say, we're just going to eat the Russell thing for one more year and get crushed by me and every talk show host, national? They don't like that because they listen to radio too and they read the papers too. And these big brands don't like getting clubbed. When I used to live in Connecticut, I watched the Yankees, the Mets, the Giants, the Jets react to sports talk radio. Callers calling in, ripping the GM's name. Owners and general managers don't like to be ripped. James Dolan once called ESPN and complained about what I said about him. He's a billionaire. They don't like it. So the Lakers want to sit there for a year and just get crushed by everybody. Their fans, Twitter, the media, Instagram. No. So they probably want to get out of this thing as fast as they can. But what's my rule with sports? Pay big money infrequently and never pay players early. You're going to get trapped. And in the NBA, it's quicksand. In the NFL, you can get out of stuff, usually. Your best option is Buddy Hield and Malcolm Brogdon for a combined 5 years and a lot of money. but I think I'd do it. I think toxicity is the killer in a workplace. Not declining players, not expensive employees that are overpaid, not lazy employees, whatever, workplace you're in. But Russell's gotten so toxic, I think you have to move on. Joy with the news. No. Athlete. My opening rant is me. You've listened to it for 25 years. Hopefully many of you have. I'm over Russell Westbrook. I think he's kind of sad now. I think this is the way it ends for people that lack self-awareness. So Russell Westbrook held his exit interview yesterday for the Lakers. Now remember, he's played more games this year than any other Laker, 73. He played more minutes than any other Laker. So he had the most opportunities to prove to us what he was. But yet, once again, at his exit interview yesterday, he blamed somebody else.
So when I first got here, I just felt that I never was given a fair chance just to be who I needed to be able to help this team.
LeBron and AD were very clear with that rest of us. We heard that a lot.
Yeah, but that wasn't true.
That's what I was going to say.
So let's be honest.
Do you ever feel like yourself this season on the court?
Very rarely. Not like, there were times and spurts, but I was just trying to find my way, honestly.
Played the most games and the most minutes, but, he was never given a chance to show who he was. The most games, the most minutes. As if the Lakers were rooting against him the whole time. Yeah, we brought him in. We're going to pay him $40 million. We hope he fails. It's always somebody else's fault. In basketball, there's players who get it immediately, LeBron James. Players who get it eventually, Carmelo Anthony. And players who never get it, Westbrook. KD has played with lots of stars. He's worked with all of them, except Westbrook. LeBron has played with lots of stars. He's worked with all of them, except Westbrook. But it's somebody else's fault. Full disclosure, I never got him. My favorite point guard ever is Magic Johnson. I loved Isaiah Thomas, John Stockton. You know how I feel about Chris Paul. He's been my favorite point guard the last decade in the NBA. I love me some Chris Paul. Westbrook, unlike those great point guards, never made anybody better. He can't shoot. He's got brutal hands. And most of all, he lacks self-awareness. And as I said years ago, and I said this about Cam Newton and Russell Westbrook, when your game has no clever, when it has no nuance, when it has no crafty, and it's simply built on a fire hose of athletic ability, you age quickly and you age poorly, and he has. But I feel bad for Westbrook now. I really do. I feel bad for him. Like I feel bad for certain Americans. Some people get it immediately, some people get it eventually, and some people never get it. There's people out there still think the election went to one side. It didn't. It's over. Move on. And January 6th was really bad. Most of us get it. Even the stubborn eventually got it. Westbrook earlier this year was asked about people, fans who were ripping him in the arena. Fans were being critical. They were screaming things like Westbrook. Once again, no accountability. Here it was.
My family has reached a point to where it's really weighing on them. When it comes to basketball, I don't mind the criticism of missing and making shots, but the moment it becomes where my name is getting shamed, it becomes a issue. I can no longer allow people, for example, Westbrook to me is now shaming, like it's shaming my name, it's my legacy for my kids.
We literally have nicknames for our presidents, and people can't for a guard. No accountability. That brick part is because you're the worst shooting guard in the league, and you've had your worst year ever, and you're lacking any self-awareness, and your game's never been clever or nuanced, and therefore you've aged quickly. I really do wish this is the last time I talked about Westbrook, whatever you want to call him. I really wish it was the last time. I feel bad for him. I feel bad for people who don't use mirrors. They still work. They're in our bathrooms. You should stare at them occasionally. But I don't want to make fun of him. I don't want to poke him. I feel bad for him. I like people who are often stubborn to eventually go, wow, light came on. It never has for Russ. If I was the Lakers, I would move him as soon as I can. There's a lot of average players in the league. They're just not toxic. With Russ, that's simply what he's been reduced to. Toxic. All right, now let's talk about something that is more fun, rooting for the bad guy. So there are some harsh realities in life. Uncle Colin is going to deliver some harsh realities. Now, children, if you're watching, your parents will never tell you this. Your uncles won't tell you this. Grandpa won't tell you this. Your teacher won't tell you this. Uncle Colin is going to deliver some harsh news today for all you kids. Hard work doesn't always pay off. Now, if you're talented and you work hard, that always pays off. But some of you aren't that talented. You'll work really hard, and it still won't amount to much. Hard work has limitations. Sorry, it does. And the second thing is, being selfish can get you what you want. Not always, and nobody likes those people, but being selfless often gets you trampled in life. Sometimes, occasionally, being selfish is okay. Nobody's going to tell you that except Uncle Colin. And the Brooklyn Nets are everything that's bad with basketball. The Celtics are everything that's good. The Celtics draft their players. They're patient with their players. They develop their players. They play the same guys every night. They develop chemistry. They're coachable. They play great defense. They defend the three. They defend the interior.